Hey everybody, welcome to Sex is Medicine. I am your host, Devi Ward Erickson, and I am delighted to have you here with us this evening for another wonderful episode of Sex is Medicine, your number one resource for holistic sex education. This evening we have a show that is just completely appropriate for what is happening in the world today. And in radio, we're not usually supposed to timestamp our shows, but I want to do this for historical reference because what we are going through right now is a historical event. So today is June 4th, 2020. There are currently protests in all 50 states over the police murder of George Floyd on May 25th, Breonna Taylor on March 13th, 2020, and countless other Black lives lost, murdered for nothing more than being Black in America. The show topic today is about sexual healing for Black women, specifically, and the vital need for sexual healing for communities, Black communities specifically, and why. So that's what we're going to explore today, because at the root of all this violence is pain, is suffering, is hundreds of years of abuse. And all of that lives in our bodies. All of that literally is encoded into our DNA. And it's going to arise in our life today, in every moment. And we are also continuously under assault every day. So it's like a wound that's never given an opportunity to even close, much less heal. And this impacts every area of our life, particularly our sexuality, which is the core, the root of our creative energy, our life essence, our ability to be fully actualized in this life is rooted in our relationship, our healthy relationship to our sexuality. And there are so many obstacles for Black women specifically to achieving that. So we want to share with you today, we want to outline what those obstacles are, and most importantly, what you can begin to do now today to begin transforming that and reclaiming our birthright to joy, to pleasure, to expression, to connection, to wholeness within ourselves, our relationships, and our community. I want to start off by introducing my phenomenal guests this evening, who I have such deep honor and respect and admiration for. And I also get to say that they are students and graduates of my training program. So in our upper left-hand corner, we have Amini Glover. In our lower left, we have Sequita Whitfield. And in the lower right, we have Candice Anitra. I always pronounce that wrong. Okay, I always get the I and the T reversed. Okay, and so before we dive in any further, I would love if you guys just shared a little bit about who you are and what you do and your what you love about your mission in life. So Amini, can we start with you?
Absolutely. Such a joy to be here. I am Amini Glover. I like to introduce myself by who I am in my gene pool. I am the daughter of Dolores Glover, the granddaughter of Nathaniel Glover and Izetta Glover, the great-granddaughter of Geraldine Hunter. I am the lineage of my ancestors, and it is a joy to be here. And like my ancestors, I am a cultural worker and a community organizer at heart. I believe that you use everything to affect and make change happen. And claiming our sexuality is a big part of that. So I believe in art for social change. All of my work, all of my community organizing work, everything that I do is art for social change. And it is an art to love ourselves. It is an art to please ourselves. It is an art to accept ourselves. It is an art to live in this world and breathe and say that I am more than enough. So I am so thankful to be here with you and my sister.
Yes.
Thank you. Sequita, are you willing to share?
Yes, I'm Sequita Whitfield. I hail from San Diego, California. And I am all that in a bag of chips. I am, I am a tantrika. I am a healer. I am a bright, shining light in this world that carries this medicine that is my gift to share to as many people as I can. And I have so much more to say, and I'm an introvert, so that's enough.
Okay. We'll circle back. Thank you. Candace.
Hello, hello. I am Candace Anitra. I am, I consider myself to be a non-binary woman. I am an artist. I'm a mother. I am a pleasure and presence cultivator. Like, my experience as a human being, as an artist, is just getting as present as I can with whatever is arising, and the work that I've found, the community that I've found here in Authentic Tantra. I could go on, but it has really met all of my needs and goals to spread medicine, to encourage people to tell their stories, to encourage others to take up their space and reclaim space. So
reclaim space.
Let's take up all the damn space. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let your voice be heard.
Yes.
Yeah. So to start us off, I want to share some numbers. So let's talk about some statistics, like what's happening on the ground right now with Black women and sexuality. So starting off, so I got this information I want to share with you because there's a wonderful PDF on Black women and sexual violence from now.org. And I'm actually going to put the link to it under this episode on our website, authentictantra.com, and our YouTube channel, Sex is Medicine. So you can all download it and read it for yourself. But just top line, the statistics on US women and violence are staggering. So this is all US women. On average, 1 in 3 women are victims of intimate partner violence, and 1 in 5 women are victims of sexual assault. That's crazy. So at least one of us on this call right now are victims of intimate partner violence. Right? These numbers underscore the epidemic of sexual violence in the US, which disproportionately impacts women of color, immigrant women, LGBTQIA women, and disabled women. For African American women, sexual assault and violence are incredibly pervasive issues that routinely go unreported and underaddressed. Over 18% of African American women, and unfortunately, over 18% of African American women will experience or has been sexually assaulted. And unfortunately, this percentage only accounts for the number of women who report their abuse. Only 1 out of 15 Black women who are raped will report the sexual assaults. Statistics show that Black women who do report crimes of sexual assault or violence are less likely to be believed than their white counterparts. And we already know it's hard enough for white women to be believed about rape. Don't try being a Black woman and crying rape, right? This study found that men found guilty of raping Black women receive shorter sentences than men found guilty of raping white women, because our lives are not as valuable, right? For African American women, sexual assault and violence often function under the space of misogyny or discrimination and abuse based on both race and gender. Patriarchy is not simply about gender. It also reaffirms hegemonic racial structures as well, thereby disadvantaging women of color on multiple levels. In 2016, researcher Akia Bernard stated, "We live in a culture where to an extent," and this is 2016, "where to an extent white women, especially middle-class white women, are able to define, play with, and explore their sexuality in ways women of color are not. And Black women are defined by their sexuality as their sexuality." So they were talking about, right before, they were talking about how our Black women's sexuality has been, we've been hypersexualized, right, since the time of slavery. And that we are, we're just basically these sexual available beings. And so instead of us being able to have safe spaces to explore and expand and open to our sexuality in the same way that white women are, because of the box that we're put in, because of the restrictions that are in place, we don't have that same freedom of expression without being penalized for it, right? Without violence and abuse against us being considered justified. So what are your thoughts when you hear these statistics? What comes up for you?
I wish I could say I was surprised. It doesn't surprise me. I've experienced it within my own family, so yeah, I'm not surprised. It is about reclaiming and just cultivating presence. And like, what is a boundary? How do you know when it's been crossed?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know? Who teaches you that? Where do you go to learn it?
And I think as a culture, as Black women have been raised to believe we are boundaryless, like we don't have boundaries, you know? And and I experience it in ways like I can be in the elevator and someone that's not Black will say, "Oh, your hair is so pretty, can I touch it?" I have no boundaries, you know? And men will fetishize me and like, you know, and it's like I have no boundaries. It's like where reclaim
Mm-hmm.
that boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's such a huge thing because historically our boundaries were robbed from us, right? Slaves don't have boundaries.
Exactly.
And that culture, the slave mindset, has been perpetuated throughout the United States. I mean, it's what the United States was founded on. And so it's rooted deep in the subconscious of the collective of this culture. And so we're impelled or compelled to do these things without this conscious awareness, because there's just this inherent built-in assumption exactly that we not only do we not have boundaries, but we don't have a right to have boundaries because we're property. We're not people.
That's what I just, yeah, go ahead, Amini, go ahead.
No, I agree with all of you. It makes me think of Sister Dr. Joy DeGruy's work,
Yes.
post-traumatic slave syndrome,
Yes.
and her 12 years of cultivating her understanding of what this is that we're living day to day and how the effects of slavery live with us in our DNA. And so I hear that when you are all expressing that, and I see that in my work with myself and my work with my family and my work with community, and just the results of how she laid it out and how she says that it's multi-generational, that it's absence of an opportunity to heal, that it is just in our systems, and it's a syndrome because it is affecting us day by day. And so I just see that playing out in what you're saying.
Yeah. And I feel kind of overwhelmed sometimes because this is such a huge topic, because it's so multi-layered, because we're talking about not what's happening today, but what's happened for 400 years that still is activated and lives within each of us. Right? And then we pile on top of that. So we're coming with this historical trauma that is embedded again in our cells, that has altered our DNA to make us more susceptible to depression, anxiety, hypertension, chronic illness, disease. That's the legacy that we carry in our bodies, right? And all of that's going to affect our sexual functioning. How am I going to experience my full sexual expression when I'm overwhelmed with depression and anxiety and I'm not healthy because of the pain and trauma that my ancestors felt? And then we layer on that the everyday microaggressions of being Black in America.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So it's overwhelming because it's like there's so much, and where do we even begin? How do we even begin to address this issue? So for you, what does that look like for you to begin the journey of reparations within ourselves, of repairing the wound, repairing the damage and tending the wound, and healing it and transforming it and using that as fuel to excel and to bring our gifts and our medicine and our mission out into the world? Where did that start for you? That being willing to go there, and then that transformation. So from the alchemy. That's what I'm trying to say. The alchemy where the wound turns into fuel. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it started when I started Authentic Tantra, because it gave me a new way to view my sexuality. My sexuality has been colonized, you know, through the generations. It's been either through rape or assault or you know, being farmed out to have babies as a nanny. So, you know, all my sexual concepts is just based on what was passed down, you know. And so you were first, you were property, so you just you know, you had sex with whoever made you have sex with you. It was usually non-consensual. And so then as the generations moved on, we didn't talk about how to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't sacred. It wasn't mutual. It was, you get yours and I'll get mine, and, and we'll, keep it moving. So Authentic Tantra gave me a way to reframe and reclaim my sexuality.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. What got you to the point where you were even curious about having that experience, right? Because when we're so when we have so much of that stuff occlusion there, and the burden and the heaviness and all that stuff there, there's a point in which we say we want something different. And that's when we start that seeking. What was that for you?
There was a point about 7 or 8 years ago when I started this journey, where I viewed my body as it had needs that I didn't know how to access. And so I became very shut down. I became, just celibate, because I didn't know how to address it. And it was 4 years ago when I met you and met, some of my other colleagues, that opened up a whole door to me, like, oh my God, there's a different way to look at this. I can be that fully sexually expressed person.
And it sounds like that was a homecoming for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh, you're gonna? I was right there with you. I can relate to everything that my sister Sequita is saying, and also for me, it is learning my own narrative. So growing up culturally, I'm told a certain narrative, and then the world is telling me a narrative about my sexuality, who I like, what I like, how I should do it, how I should bend over and bust it wide open, whatever it is, however I'm supposed to do it. And so learning the voice to control my narrative, to say, this is what I like. And that comes through the permission to explore, right? And so in my journey, I've learned a lot of constriction, tension that comes from trauma. When the body is wound up tight in a ball, like a ball of yarn, and not able to release itself and relax into pleasure because I am constricted because I think someone may harm me. That comes from walking down the street. It comes from people, attraction from down the street and feeling like I can't, control that, or I can't control if I'm walking and my father says, you're moving with too much hips, you're inviting people in, or I'm wearing a dress and that's too short, you want some attention. So just really learning, okay, I've been told these narratives. How do I unlearn these pathologies that are within me? And how do I address those things that just aren't true anymore? There's things that aren't true and were never true. And so it starts with that as a little girl of, what do I like on my body? How do I want to express my body? Is my body okay? My breasts are forming. Is it all right? Can I touch my body? Is my body mine to touch? So really learning how to get up under those things. And it begins with esteem. How I cannot love you if I don't know how to love myself. And if I haven't given myself permission and I don't know how to give myself permission to love myself, then how do I do that? So it's been a long journey of, how do I love Amini first? I have nothing to offer you if I don't see something within myself that's worthy. So it's been that process, and just, man, we carry this stuff in our bones. So I'm not only carrying the trauma of myself, I'm carrying the trauma of my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-great-great-grandmother, and I don't even realize it. So I had stuff coming up that wasn't even my own. I've had anger, and I still have anger, honestly, that is not even my own. And it affects my body. It's toxic stress syndrome. I am constantly stressed walking in this world. What are you going to do? What are you going to see? How are you going to perceive me? Am I breathing too hard? Am I talking too loud? Am I angry? How am I perceived? Because it's about my safety. So all of those things working together.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, so many points. And then before I want to hear you share, Candace, and I just want to point out that there's this anger shaming. And I want to say that healthy anger is necessary for transformation. If an infant does not receive the care, the connection, the attunement, if its needs are not being met, the first thing it expresses is anger. And if that anger is not received and heard and attuned to, it goes into collapse, right? And that is trauma. That's when it becomes trauma. So anger at injustice is healthy. We should never be complacent about justice. So the anger in our bones from our ancestors is justified. And that anger is fuel for transformation. So I just want to, take anger shaming off the table for all fucking Black women. Like anger shaming off the fucking table. We have a fucking right to be angry. We are abused every single fucking day. We have a right to be angry. And that anger is justified. And until there is justice, there will still be pain. So do you want to perpetuate that pain, or do you want to be part of the process of healing and transforming that pain? I'm saying that for the white people. Candace.
Hallelujah. I don't know what else to say. I mean, high five and praise dance and all that. Everything you were all saying is spot on. To me, I feel like I started a journey of reclaiming my body, my access to pleasure a long time ago, but it was very much, it was a cerebral exercise. Like, I know a lot about a little bit of stuff, but I didn't know myself very well. And as, some other people have mentioned, like, it's like, how do you experiment? Like, how do you ask permission of yourself? Where is that voice? And how can I strengthen that muscle and really go through an awkward phase? And sometimes it's still awkward, to express my feelings, to ask for help. I include that as part of it now. I'm like, I'm an anxious person. I've always been anxious. I didn't know. That was just my hypervigilant state. It was super necessary for my survival, for my childhood. Like, I needed it. I needed to be like, which is why you could never surprise me. You could never startle me before I started this work. I'll be like, I saw you coming, I'm out of the way. It wasn't because I wasn't afraid before. It's because I didn't have access to it. Now, I hear a loud sound, I'm like, it's because I'm more present than I've ever been. Like, I'm feeling more than I've ever been. And because of that, the people around me, it's like they had permission to, my mother randomly will call me and say, I just want to apologize. If my anxiety when you were a kid negatively affected you. And I know that's because of the work I'm doing, the conversations we have. I know it. It's just a regular Thursday. She was like, I need to have a Zoom with you and your brother. I want to know, what's under there. It was just the tip of the iceberg conversation, but that's why I do this work. It's for me, it's for my children, it's for my ancestors, it's for all of us. It's why I'm here. I have to. So I have to. That's it.
And how important has it been for you to address the sexuality specifically for that deep healing? Because there's healing, there's conversations and whatever, but it's the sexuality piece that seems to bring this depth of healing and transformation that does get us into our bones, that does begin to address that cellular memory that we want to resolve. So how, for you, what was your experience of integrating your sexuality into that path of personal growth?
Like a Technicolor dream, because I just noticed all the subtle shades. It was like before, because I was so concerned with am I safe? Am I safe? Is it cool? Is it cool? Is it cool? Is it okay? Should I feel? Is that right? I missed so much stuff. Yeah. I wasn't there. I was very disembodied. So what it has given me to incorporate my sexuality is just a sense of power, focus. Even in the times when I'm feeling overwhelmed, these days, I'm feeling very overwhelmed. Some days I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so numb, my brain, I can't. But the only reason I notice that is because of the work I'm doing, integrating my sexuality. Because of the work I'm doing when I'm laying down and I'm having sacred sexual practice. Because of the care that I pour into that. I'm making it sacred. I am saying to myself, you are precious, and let me show you how. I noticed that you like citrus. All right, so I'm gonna put in that oil blend. I'm gonna put that bergamot. You know what I mean? I'm gonna add that cedarwood. That's something it would never have occurred to me before. I don't know what piece of me is enjoying the citrus, but I'm gonna give it to you. And I notice now. I notice your signs, your signals, your whoa. Yeah. I will pause, and I never would have done that before. That's impolite. It's rude. It's rude to pause. So the presence with myself in private has helped me to be having difficult conversations in public. It helps me to access, like, what am I afraid of? Because I've had moments during practice where I'm like, oh my God, I suddenly remember like how significant doors were in my childhood home and like them being locked. And like my father was really paranoid about it actually. And like, what did that do to me? What am I feeling? What is it? What's it look like? I would never notice. I would just kept on being like, I'm spiritual. I'm here. And I was here. And now I'm here.
Yeah. I'm home.
Yeah.
And what you're describing, that beautiful process of reclaiming our time to take care of ourselves in this way. Oh my God, the time and the care that has never been granted. That is so vital to healing the history, right? That our grandparents and our great-grandparents and our mothers never had the opportunity to actually be that quiet and be that present and take that much care, and how that heals the lineage, how that heals generations, and how, I mean, I think this is so crucial because the other thing that comes up for me in regards to Black women and sexuality is the role of the church, right? And how oppressive that can be for Black communities, that ideology around exploring their sexuality, and how terrified many Black women may be that touching themselves may be against God, because that's what they were taught, right? And so this concept of this sacredness of self-pleasure as a reclamation, as a necessary and vital part of coming home to ourselves and our bodies, and then being able to pay attention and listen in those secret, sacred places, and how that has reverberations in your relationships in every other area of your life. I love what you said about the sacredness and the listening that you give yourself in your own sacred space allows you to have these very challenging conversations out in the world. And this is how this inside begins to heal that outside. Yeah. 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 So I have a question that's arising. So what can we Black women do to help each other heal sexually? How can we support each other?
By this kind of conversation, by this type of holding space for other Black women to be a representation that it is safe to self-pleasure. It is safe to love yourself first. It is safe to say no. And walk with each other through that. I noticed that in my own practice of walking, through myself, holding space for myself when I come up against a block. I notice when I just have empathy and compassion for myself and just say, what are you feeling? What do you need? And make and meet that need if I can. Working with my clients and watching them learn, how to touch themselves without the guilt and the shame, and validating that it's okay. Yeah, you have a right. We have a fucking right. And Black women just don't have. I'm so glad you brought up the church thing, because I run across that quite often. It's a sin to have an orgasm. I've heard that from Black women. I can't touch myself, but my husband can. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Almany?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great points that both Candace and Sequita offered. And in my hearing of it and how I analyze it for myself is the erasure of Black women in a lot of platforms. And so me having these sister circles, us being on this platform together, saying, I see you, even the head nod on the street, I need to feel seen, I need to feel heard, and not just your view and your perception of what you've been fed that I am, but the truth of who I am, which is more multicolored and multidimensional than what the world has narratives for. And so just really reclaiming the story, like we said over and over again, and really naming that there's a erasure of Black women in the full breadth of who we are in our story. We're not all the same, but we have connecting blocks, connective tissues that we can pull on and hold each other up and say, I see you, in a real authentic way, in a way that allows us to continue to express and explore. When I think of my journey, it is seeing women like you, Devi, women like you, Sequita, women like you, Candace, owning your sexuality and saying, I see my body, and I can draw a semblance of understanding from you, and then I am free within myself to do that same work. You know, so for me, I had a lot of shame around touching my body. I grew up Catholic, you know what I mean? Where masturbation is considered a sin, you know? And so really developing self-pleasure, really knowing that pleasure is possible, because trauma gets in the way. And so when I go for that pleasure and that pain bubbles up, oh, well, it's not meant to be. There's no pleasure here. So again, redefining the narrative, seeing myself and saying that pleasure does exist, and it is indeed medicine. And it's not Western medicine that says pop a pill. It says get to know my body and say that it's mine. That's the type of medicine we're talking about. Allowing it to breathe life, to be vital, to thrive, and not just survive. I'm sick of just trying to survive. Let me thrive. So what does it look like when my cells are thriving and my body is moving? We come from a people that move, you know? So what happens when my energy is stuck and I feel repressed and oppressed and I cannot move my body? I tighten up, and, you know, I can't breathe deeply with our ocean breath. I can't acknowledge myself, and I'm erasing my own self because I'm influenced by all these outer influencers.
Yeah, and you bring up such a salient point, which is particularly in the realm of Tantra and sacred sexuality and sexual healing, that when we're talking about healing, it's imperative that we are viewing the entirety of the human, and not just how they're presenting today, but the lineage that we literally carry in our DNA. And so I love that you pointed out the erasure of Black women and the Black experience, and how important it is. Like, you just can't gloss over historical trauma. You can't gloss over epigenetics. you can't gloss over that and think that what works for, you know, a middle-class white woman is going to work for a middle-class Black woman, right? Because of the history, because of what's happening in the world today. And so the methods may be the same, but the approach, the understanding, the presence that we bring to it has to account for the totality of the situation and the gravity of the situation, because this shit is no joke.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to share anything on the topic of how we support our sisters, Candace?
I will chime in and say, I feel like a big part, like, I've mostly worked with people who identify as Black women. It's amazing. I love it. So much. I'm like, oh my God, this is so fun. And most of what I do is I'm in empathy with them.
Yeah.
I'm listening to their stories. I'm validating their experience. I'm saying that sounds really hard. That sounds so painful. Like I'm repeating back to them. And I feel like for a lot of human beings, being able to speak your story, rewrite your narrative, as you were saying, like being able to reclaim, like being able to do all that, like, and have a witness in the boat with you. Like, yeah, we in the fire, like we in it. Like, I see you. I see your lips sweating. I see you. Mine is too. You know, like that's the most beautiful thing you can offer another human being. I see you, as you were saying, Amini, in the fullness, all the dimensions, all the hurts that you never knew were there.
Yeah. Thank you, Candace.
And to give them voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let
The
them
name
heard.
healing. What? Like it's unheard of. I feel like before I began, like specifically this work in sexuality and integration, I didn't have as extensive a vocabulary for feelings. I didn't. Like starting to practice communication, I'm like, it's good. It's nice. I like it. Yes. Like I like, oh well, maybe there are other flavors of that. Yes, I never took the time. I never had the hand holding as I've had in this community to explore that. To have you, Devi, being like, yes, yes. Like in a session, you're like, oh my gosh, they see me.
Yeah.
They feel me.
Yeah. So to be witnessed.
I'm not erased.
Yeah. To be witnessed, to be seen.
Yeah.
To be heard.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what we can do for each other.
Yeah.
That's what we do for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Particularly when it comes to healing our sexual wounds or being present with, recognizing, acknowledging, and overcoming and transforming our sexual wounds. So what about Black men? What can Black men do to help Black women heal and reclaim their full sexual expression?
I think that, well, in my experience, it is very challenging for someone from a marginalized group to talk about other ways that they experience privilege. So if I say, well, when I'm walking down the street, I feel XYZ to my father, for example, he's like, but I'm a Black man. And it's almost like he can't see the fullness of my experience. Like, well, sometimes when I'm walking, I'm actually smaller than the people that I might encounter, or, there might be certain subtleties of experience that you're blocking out actually. And it's because you're blocking out your experience. Like I know it's because there's other trauma there that you dare not go into that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like you're not ready. You don't want to. You don't have to actually, because that's how privilege works.
Yeah.
You don't have to. It's a choice. So I think that's how you can get into it. Choose to investigate all of your privilege. I mean, like ableism, like the fact that we say, oh, that's so crazy. Like, is that cool? I don't know. The fact that I'm a performer and I never once thought, oh, is this venue accessible? That's terrible. But like I was like, oh, whoa, no, that's real. That happened.
Yeah. So you're saying being mindful that even though we are all oppressed, there are different privileges, different accesses that we each have. And so the willingness to be mindful and aware that, yes, you are in pain, but so am I. And
believe me,
your pain doesn't cancel out my pain. Yeah.
Believe what I'm saying.
Yeah. Believe me, hear me, see me.
Yes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Amini?
Yeah, I relate to you, sis, on that, Candace. The whole "Say Her Name" hashtag came out of murders of Black women that went unnoticed and unheard. So there's a deep need within our Black men to see us and hear us that this thing happened. And not only that, stand with us. And allow the space for us to speak our own narrative, but stand with us and believing us and support us. And I mean, just to really understand that there are wounds in the way too, and so we must do our work. Internalized oppression is a thing. And so we carry it in different ways. And when I say internalized oppression, that means the dominant white structure that is going on in the world affects us. And we internalize things. So we may become smaller, we may become meeker, we may do different things that racism impacts how we work and communicate in the world. And so our Black men seeing us and hearing us and doing their work. So those wounds that come up when we're having those conversations that are just triggering one another and we cannot hear or see one another, that when we have spaciousness to do our work. And so even in saying that, I understand the caveat of all the oppressions that give us time and space to do our work. But that is my offering, that we do it bit by bit, that we see each other in it, and that we honor our stories that are already out there and the things that we need to say.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that, because even having the time and space to do our work is a privilege.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So being very mindful.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm.
What are your thoughts, Sequita?
Ooh, thank you, Amini and Candace. Trust comes up for me. You know, Black men, I want them to trust me. And not just trust me, but trust that I know myself enough to say what I'm feeling is valid. I have been discounted by Black men. Don't feel that way. That, you know, no, you don't feel that way. So then I don't feel like you trust me, to trust myself. And that has been part of my unfolding very recently. Just, you know, I had an opportunity to have, you know, someone in my life, and I said something about, you know, I was feeling numb. Oh, no, you're not. Yeah. I was like, wow.
Trust me.
Oh, okay. You know, oh, okay. And there was a part of me that froze, because that's my go-to, flight, fight, or freeze, right? I go to freeze. I'll play dead. Okay. You know, but I saw myself, I had that experience of witnessing myself, you know, abandon myself one more time.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't trusted to know my body. I wasn't trusted to know, you know, and what I got was that they didn't know how to trust me. The Black men don't know how to trust us when we say what's really going on. You know, because they don't have this is my experience. They don't really have the tools. They don't have the information that we offer through Tantra, especially to verbalize our feelings, our wants and our needs, and without expectation. Because men come from a place of, if I can't fix it, then I'm useless. So me saying I'm numb, and my partner saying, no, you're not, because he said, well, let me try this. You know, it's like, that's not it.
Well, it's almost like he heard that as a personal, like a value statement about him. I'm numb. Oh, I must not be doing something right, as opposed to, oh, wow, what's going on for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, that takes time. That takes, you know, education. That takes, you know, but I'm just saying that has happened to me before, about the trust, not just sexually, but just in life in general.
In life. Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like what's happening for us sexually is happening for us everywhere. And what happens for us everywhere happens for us sexually, because there's no separation. Sex is not separate from life. Life is not separate from sexuality. We are whole integrated humans.
Yeah.
Everything comes to the table in every moment. In every moment, we're bringing everything to the table, right? I want to say that
right?
Yes, exactly. Like Brian Craig says, a block in one area is a block in every area. Yeah. Yeah. I want to say that the work of Dr. Joy DeGray, am I saying that correctly, Amini? Yeah. DeGray.
Yeah, DeGray.
Okay.
DeGray.
Yeah. So she speaks beautifully and wonderfully about the historical interactions of Black men and Black women, and how our history shows up in our relationships today. And so I invite anyone who's interested in learning more about that dynamic and how it was perpetuated on purpose by the institutions, how that disconnection, how that pain, how that separation was created intentionally to destroy the love between Black men and Black women. So she does a wonderful job of documenting that and outlining that.
Yes.
Yeah. So for those of our listeners who yearn for and who are ready to embark on the journey of sexual healing, let's talk about how they can begin that by working with you guys. So Amini, could you share your website and a little bit about your points of focus in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is ahshay.me. So AHSHAY.me. And you can work with me when you want to feel fully alive in your body. Give yourself permission to really live vibrantly, to know that you're safe and living vibrantly, to know you have agency over your body, to know that a part of your birthright, no, your full birthright, is how can you experience pleasure in so many ways? How can you have fun in the midst of it all? How can you pull in those things that your life is calling for in the midst of it all, and knowing that it's all good? So reach out to me if you are ready and willing to examine play, to look at pleasure as medicine. Again, not as something, not as a pill to pop, but as a thing to integrate into your body, to have a greater relationship with what works for you. And you get to say what that is, and you have the right to say what that is. And like my sister Candace said, our practice cultivates the language to do so. So it's one thing to say what it is, and it's another thing to have a guide, a witness, to support you in that process and say, have you thought about this? Or I heard you when you say that. So if you want a guide, a witness, a companion, a sacred companion to journey with you, then I am here for you. And know that this is lineage based. I believe in the ancestors. And so that's what pulled me into authentic Tantra. This is lineage based, an oral lineage from women. So, I am just excited and thrilled to be with you on a journey, because we are more than enough, and we get to say what we want and what we need.
Beautiful. And you're based in DC, but you work on worldwide. Is that right?
Yes, based in DC, but worldwide, virtual.
Yeah, and I also just want to point out, like, you are really, we started a check-in before our recording today, or our broadcast today, and you were sharing how you are literally using that concept of pleasure as medicine to ground and anchor through these turbulent times, because Washington DC right now is like ground zero. Right? And you are using absolutely such a beautiful embodiment, a perfect embodiment of that teaching of using pleasure as an antidote to this suffering. Yeah. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Sequita.
Yes.
Yeah. How can people contact you, and how can they work with you?
Yes, I am based in San Diego, working worldwide. My website is simply-tantra. Be sure to include the hyphen. And on the heels of Omni, the same work. I really like working spiritually as well as physically. I'm very animated about that. I really, really like to weave in what we have to offer as far as meditation and movement and connection and pleasure and dance and, just fully embodying in the body. And I work with men as well. So if you have, any issues in erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, you want to practice semen retention, that's, I love lingam worship. So I'm just saying, So,
I'm with you.
As well as yoni worship, as well as, if you really want to become fully sexually expressed and embody the principles of authentic Tantra, then, check me out.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Simplytantra.com. Simply-tantra.com.
Yes.
How about you, Miss Candace?
All right. You can find me at candaceanitra.com. You should work with me if you want to cultivate presence. If you are interested in healing ancestral trauma, because that's what I'm doing here. The stuff that I'm bringing up, I'm like, I don't know, Grandma. I don't know who all memories that was, but I'm sorry that happened to you. We're going to work through this together. So if you are ready to shine light on all of your pieces, not just your favorite pieces, if you're ready to play and be curious and expand what pleasure is, talk about how you find it in your body, have someone holding your hand that, I'll be in empathy with you all the live long day and ever after. I feel like all my clients, I'm just like, go forth. like I'm thinking of you. I'm really wishing you well. So come here. If you want to come home to yourself, friend yourself.
Beautiful. And what's your website again?
CandaceAnitra.com. That's CandiceAnitra.com.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
being seen,
Mm.
being heard, being known,
Yeah.
being embraced, being accepted, being whole.
Mhm.
And we do it together.
Yes. Yes.
So I love you.
Ah,
You too.
I love you too.
woo.
Listeners, we love you.
We do. We love you. Ooh.
Thank you for joining us. Come play with us.
Yes.
Yes.
And I just want to dedicate the merit of this episode and this time and this beauty and this God that we all shared to all of the protesters. May they be safe. May they be protected. May their immune systems be healthy and strong, because let's not forget, we're also in the middle of a global pandemic. June 4th, 2020, my friends. So dedicating the merit that they may all be safe from harm, that they may be protected, that they may have peace, and may all of their needs be met effortlessly, easefully, and with grace. And by the blessings of all of our ancestors, may it be so.
Mhm.
So,
Maybe. Oh, so hot.
yeah. So thank you all for listening tonight. Blessings.
Mm.